Hi, I'm Andy. I'm an alcoholic. Once again, I want to thank the good people at Evolutions for inviting me to speak here and to be able to share my experience, my strength, my hope, so that I can keep growing in my recovery and maybe pass a message along to somebody else. In our last session, I talked about, what the steps were and what we use them for. And I'm going to start a series today, and go through the steps and talk about each step individually. And I think it's important to go through the steps in order. They were written in order, and just like a great piece of music, you have to take them in order, because you can't do a step unless you're successful for the steps before it. The very first step says, we were admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. In NA, they say we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. I happen to like the NA definition, that we were powerless over our addiction, because I wasn't really powerless over alcohol. What I really was powerless over the disease of alcoholism. And why do I say that? I say that because my real problem wasn't the fact that once I started drinking, I couldn't stop drinking. That's being powerless over alcohol. My real problem was that when I wasn't drinking, I couldn't stop from not drinking. I had to drink. So even in a sober state, even when I didn't drink at all, I had this craving, this need to have to go out and drink. And unfortunately, once I drank, I had the inability to turn it off. I would just keep drinking and drinking and drinking, And the doctors define this. They say there are two parts to the problem. One, when we don't drink, we suffer from this mental craving, restless, irritable, discontent. That life is unfair, that I'm always miserable, I have to drink. And then when I start drinking, the physical part of my problem kicks in, and it's like an allergy. I break out not in a rash, I don't break out in sneezing or sniffles. What I do is I break out in cravings. I have to keep drinking once I start. So the idea is, if I stop drinking, how do I end this need, this craving, Well, it all starts with this first step. We admitted we were powerless. See, the word admit is a very strong word. It just doesn't mean, okay, I get it. What it really is a surrender. It's a total surrender. See, and that was my problem for many years, because my background told me you can admit to anything, but what I would do would admit and negotiate. It's like when a cop pulls you over and you say, yes, officer, I know I was speeding, but you have to understand I was late for work. And if I didn't get there, there were children that wouldn't have a teacher that would be available to them. So it was very important. So I would admit that I had to keep drinking, but I would negotiate that it really wasn't that bad. That didn't work, because the truth of the matter is, I had to admit to my innermost self. We said we had to fully concede to our innermost self that I was powerless, that this disease of alcoholism had me by its grip. And even when I wasn't drinking, this disease was getting me. It was making me miserable. It was making me do crazy things. It was a form of insanity that infected my life. And I look back on those days now, and I chased everybody out of my life, and the crazy things I did were when I was drunk. People do crazy things when they're drunk all the time. You can walk into a bar, and people are, they get into fights, they get into their car, and, they drive drunk. They wake up in the morning next to someone, they have no idea who it is. But when they stop drinking, that insane behavior ends. My problem is my alcoholism never ended. I was constantly in legal problems. I was constantly not taking care of the ordinary things that people do. I get a parking ticket and throw it in the back seat. I get a tax bill and I throw it in the garbage. I never took care of business. And that was what the disease really did me in, because in the end I lost everything, because my life was unmanageable because of this powerlessness. This powerlessness caused me to keep drinking, not only made me drink, but made me not take care of the ordinary things that people take care of. See, there should be in that step that our lives were unmanageable as a direct result of our powerlessness. See, I used to write it away. I used to say that, well, everybody has unmanageable things. They're too busy, they're too this, they're too that. But the truth of the matter is everybody didn't have all these things. So I had to come to this big admission which we say is a surrender. And and even when I admitted that I had to surrender, it was difficult. There was a very famous psychologist called Dr. T-Bob who wrote a book, The Art of Surrender. And what he said was that the surrender has to have two elements. The first one, it has to be unconditional. It has to be almost unconscious. What does that mean? It means you have to surrender so big that you don't even have to think, you can't even think about it. It's like when you get into a fight with the bully in school and he's beating you up, so you pick your hands up and you say, I give up, I give up. But that's not a real surrender, because in the back of your head you're thinking, but I'm going to come back with a pipe and get you. It can't be that kind of surrender. It has to be such a complete surrender that it's almost unconscious. I am done, And the second part of that surrender is, he says you have to be completely receptive to change. And that was a big one for me, because in my surrender, I would say, okay, I'll give up drinking, but I'm not going to do anything else except not drink. And when I did stop drinking, I was still powerless over the disease of alcoholism. I wasn't drinking, but we were what I was called a dry drunk, What does that mean? It means I was always miserable. So how do I fix it? Well, the fix is going to come in the rest of the steps. But the first step is the most important one. It's the only step that we have to do 100%. We have to fully concede to our innermost selves that we're powerless over alcohol and we'll be willing to change. What does that mean? Well, for me, it meant I had to go to a lot of AA meetings or NA meetings. I went to both. And why did I have to go to these meetings? I didn't have to go to these meetings at first to learn how not to drink or drug. I had to go to those meetings to see the people there. I had to see what they have. I had to see the lives they led, because you know what I realized after a while? These people in AA and NA were very happy people. They were living productive lives. They were going home. They had jobs. They had spouses. They had girlfriends. They had children. They had dogs and cats. Whatever they had, they lived normal lives. And Bill Wilson, who wrote the big book or the textbook of Alcoholics Anonymous, knew that, because these steps we talk about don't take place until almost halfway through the book. Because first we have to learn how great this program is, and that's what I'm trying to convey to you, how wonderful my life is now. And then he says in the book, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, that's the point you have to come to, people. You have to see what we have. I have to learn what you have. That's why I had to go to all those meetings. But when you see how much better people are, people who lost their kids and the state took them away and they got them back, people who lost their families and they got them back, people who lost their friends and they got them back, when you see what these people have and you want what they have, and then it says are willing to go to any length, that means that these steps that we're going to talk about over the next period of time are not going to be something that can be taken frivolously. It has to become the most important thing in your life. You can't put anything over working these steps, because you're going to lose it anyway. If you put your job, I got to go to work today, I can't go to a meeting, I can't see my sponsor, I can't work the steps. Whatever you put ahead of these steps, you're going to lose anyway. I put my wife and my career and my home and my family ahead of working my program. And you know what ended up happening? I lost my house, I lost my cars, I lost my job. And finally, my wife and children walked out on me too. And that's all because I thought I was doing a lifestyle to keep all these things happy. But in the end, what all I did was make myself so miserable that I didn't work a program of recovery. So, step one to me is the most important. I had to come to admit that I'm powerless over alcohol. I had to surrender 100% that I was incapable of living a life the way I was living, and I had to become receptive to change. And receptive to change meant I had to take the advice that the people in AA and at my treatment center and at my IOP program told me. They said, put your brain on the shelf and don't think. Just do what we tell you to do. And if you do what we tell you to do, you're going to get better. And then you can take your brain off the shelf and put it back in your head and start thinking and live a wonderful life. And that's what happened to me. That's what I suggest you people do too. And I want to thank you all for coming and listening to me today.